Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back for Supercharged CRX. So today I'm actually going to start off. I got the car running good last night. Took it out for a drive, but I want to get a boost gauge in this thing so we can get out and actually dial in the tune and, just make her mint. So first I'm going to hook up this boost gauge I got. And this manifold actually has an extra plug that's blocked off right here. So I'm going to take this plug out and install this guy right here, which is just a 1/8 inch pipe thread to a hose barb, and I can hook a vacuum line up to it and run it to the boost gauge. So I'm going to take that out, put this in, throw the boost gauge in just kind of temporarily. Probably run the boost gauge and the vacuum line through the door or something for now, just because I'm not going to keep it in there permanently because I don't really have a gauge pot or a gauge holder and whatever. But when you're supercharged, I mean, the boost doesn't usually fluctuate at all. Like a turbo car, if the wastegate fails or something like that, you can have an overboost condition where a boost gauge is kind of necessary. But with a supercharger, I don't really think it's really needed. Once you know what it's at, you can kind of just leave it. Let's get to it. Alright guys, so I got the car running and whipped out the laptop quick. And we're just checking out the tune up here. I actually had to take my original tune that was on the car before we supercharged it. And on Chrome, I just went to Advanced Boost Tools. I've showed you this a bunch of times, guys. But Advanced Boost Tools, and then you just click through all this stuff, and then you have a boost map. Woohoo! And then I just took the tools here under Boost Table Adjustments, and I adjusted for 120%, whatever. We're good. So this thing's all dialed. I adjusted my ignition timing manually, like I always do, and yeah, we should be good to go. We're running pretty much pump gas ignition timing on E85, so we should be good there. And yeah, car's running pretty smooth. Just chilling. Car's holding a good idle. It's running pretty smooth. But I did kind of ghetto rig a boost gauge in here. I just got a vacuum line running into the window, and here's my boost gauge, just for temporary testing everything out, make sure this thing's making boost and making sure how much boost it's actually on, etc. So yeah, we're gonna take this thing out and give her some juice and see how much boost this thing's on, and if we can get her tuned up pretty good. See how she rips. All right, so
it's bumpy.
all right. I'm training a cameraman here. Okay, so we're driving the CRX now. I got the boost gauge in, and we're hitting 12 pounds of boost. So I'll put it forth right now. We're at 2,500 RPM. 2,500. Watch the boost gauge. All right, 2,200 right now, and I'm gonna floor it. Instant. So that's awesome. We got the small pulley setup going on. So this is like the most this supercharger will make is like 12 pounds safely, supposedly, from what Jackson Racing says. But we're gonna get on some open road here and see where the tune is. I got it set up pretty rich right now, so when I floor it, it's like in the bottom 10s, air fuel wise. So if I floor it right now, 10.3 on the wideband, which is really rich. So we'll pull 10% out. After driving for like 10 minutes here, we initially started driving and the car was running like 10 to 12 pounds of boost, and now it's running 6. So I don't know if we're getting some belt slip or what the deal is, but the tune is a lot better now. I adjusted some things and it's like in the 11s air fuel ratio, which is still a little rich, but okay guys, so I'm back home now and I'm gonna look this thing over. I got a bad feeling about this supercharger, the way it's acting so far. Like I said, last night I took it out, it was 11 pounds. You could definitely tell it was 11 pounds instead of fucking 4 or 6 or whatever it's on now. I just hope it's belt slip or something stupid and it's not like, the supercharger eating itself, because if the supercharger tends to eat itself, it's going to spit all them chunks into the motor, and that's not going to be good. And I would prefer for that not to happen, so me taking this thing off is not out of the question. I might be taking it off and going back all motor, because on 4 pounds, this thing feels like it's like slower than it was before. Like the Supercharger is almost dogging the motor down so hard that it's actually slowing it down, if that makes any sense. I also don't want to give up on it. I want to, make it work and see how it is. But honestly, for the power gain that I'm seeing so far, even when it was on 12 pounds, it doesn't seem like it's going to be really worth the drain on the motor. I think these things are just going to be I think the Supercharger is just going to be really hard on the engine, dragging on the crank really hard. And if, something's wrong inside the Supercharger that I don't know about, which I don't know what would be because I inspected all of it, but yeah. Just kind of throwing that out there that I might go back, because I didn't really plan on keeping the Supercharger on. I just wanted to try it and see how it was, and maybe kind of show you guys some content and whatever. But I've never, ever, ever been a Supercharger guy, and this is clearly why. It's usually always more work than it's worth. Turbocharging is the way to go, in my opinion. And if you're going to go with a Supercharger, go with a centrifugal, like a belt. It's like a belt-driven turbo. Those seem to work a lot better than the roots blowers. The roots blowers still work, but they just generate a lot of heat, and I don't know. I'm going to quit rambling, and I'm going to tear into this thing and look at it and see if we can find anything wrong. All right, guys, so I was telling you that the belt was actually starting to walk off of the pulley last night on the Supercharger, so I actually just realigned everything and got it hooked up into the grooves a little better. And this tensioner seems to be not the best way to tension. When you tension it, it actually pushes down on the pulley, and it needs to push sideways on the pulley. So I don't know what kind of tensioner deal that this guy's got going on with the setup, but I think I'm actually just going to eliminate this tensioner bolt completely, and I'm actually just going to take a pry bar to the pulley to tension it and then tighten the jam nut here. So I'm going to do that quick, and we'll start it up and see if the belt walks off again or what it's going to do. I'm back driving the car again, and I tightened up the crank pulley to alternator belt because it was actually squealing a little bit because it was a little loose. So I tightened the shit out of it. That one's really tight now. I have no squealing from the belts anymore, and I got the Supercharger belt back lined up on the grooves. So I'm hoping that we will be able to hit the boost that this thing's set at, which is like 10 or 12 pounds. Now the Supercharger belt also is, I feel like it's just a very, very small bit too short, or too long, because I have the tensioner maxed out all the way to tighten it as much as I can with a pry bar, and it still has just a little bit of play. And I feel like when you got a Supercharger, you got to have these belts rock solid. So yeah, we'll go try this thing out again and see how it is. All right, guys. So far, the car's back on 10 to 12 pounds of boost. I can floor it, and it goes to 10. So I don't know. We might be heading in the right direction. Fourth gear and see if it holds boost or not. To 8. The 11's air fuel, so might be doing something. Try third. It's a little faster. We're still getting belt slip. The higher the RPM is, the less boost I get. So I'm thinking I need a different belt for the Supercharger, one that fits tighter. Okay, so far what I've learned on this whole setup is I think after I tightened the alternator belt, it helped a little bit, and I was able to hold 10 pounds for the first pull or two, and then after it warmed up a little bit, it lost boost and is back down to 4 pounds now. So I think the Supercharger belt, like I was saying, is a little bit too long, so I'm going to go take that belt back and I'm actually going to swap it out for a little bit of a shorter one. That way I can get the supercharger belt nice and tight, just like I have the alternator. I mean, I can barely move the alternator belt. I have it so tight. And the supercharger belt, I can move, you know, a good probably ½ inch. So I think that's part of the issue of why it's not holding boost. And usually when you get belt slip, it's at higher RPM with superchargers. And it makes sense because if I punch it at like $2,000 or 2,500, it makes 10 pounds where it should. And then as soon as it crosses over into VTEC and, you know, gets revving, the boost goes lower and lower and lower and lower, which is no fun. So this is the last thing I'm going to try. I'm going to put a smaller belt on it, and then we'll go take it out again and see if we can hold some boost and if this thing's actually worth keeping on the car or not. Now, if I put this belt on, this smaller belt, and tighten it down and it holds boost and whatever, and it still doesn't seem to have good power, I'm thinking that this supercharger might just be too small for this engine. And maybe the fact that the fins are beat up a little bit. It doesn't actually flow as much as it should. Obviously, we know when we put this in that the fins were a little bit beat up. It still does work, and it still works good. But anyways, these superchargers can only flow so much CFM. And, you know, if they're tapped out and the motor's sucking more than it needs, or if the motor wants more than the supercharger can deliver, it's actually going to hurt the motor. It's going to hurt power, and it's going to actually build more heat and etc., which probably wouldn't be the best thing for my engine. Now, a lot of these Jackson Racing superchargers are you know, they were built back in the late 90s and early 2000s when 200 horsepower in a Honda was like unheard of. So maybe this supercharger would work better on an engine that didn't make 200 horsepower all motor and something that made around 160 like a B16, because I bet you this supercharger would bump it to like 220. Now, if the motor that I have makes 200, 210, etc. all motor, and I put a supercharger on it, I may be dragging the supercharger and asking for too much out of it, which, like I said, is just going to create heat, and it's not going to be efficient. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and you don't just yell at me for giving up. If I give up, I'm not giving up yet, but if I do, I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from here, and that I just wanted to try it, and I wanted to see where everything goes with it, and what this supercharger is actually suited for. Alright, so I got the proper belt on the car now. The belt is tight, and I'm going to go try it again and see where we're at. Alright, so this thing feels like it's got a lot more torque, and I think the belt is good. It's making 10 pounds of boost. I want to see if it's going to hold for a full pull. Really strong, and then it just slowly dies off. That might be something to do with the CFM, like I was talking about. This blower might not have enough to keep going with this motor. Second gear. One of the belts just snapped on the alternator. Hopefully I got enough battery to make it home. Turn the heat off. Turn the radio off. Let's try to get it home, I guess. It's funny, I knew that belt was going to snap. almost too tight for the alternator to the crank pulley. That belt was like half ripped and it was junk. I needed to get a new one anyway. Alright, enough of this freaking nonsense already with these belts. I keep having belt problems now. But, okay, so I got 2 brand new belts. I got a brand new one for the alternator because that one actually it ripped and it flew off on the side of the road. And that's what caused me to lose my alternator and charging system, which in turn loses the supercharger as well. Well, since the alternator belt to the crank pulley broke, it actually tore off the supercharger belt as well. So I got 2 brand new belts and I'm trying it out. I got it perfectly tensioned. I didn't go too tight. I didn't go too loose. I feel like if you go too tight on it, you're just going to break the belt. And I think that's what I did on the bottom side, or on the crank pulley to alternator side. But keep in mind that that belt was already ripped and it was ready to break. So, whatever. Shit happens when you use used parts. That's part of the game. But if I get away with stuff, I try to do it, obviously. So, all right, let's go try this thing. Hopefully one last final time and see if it works. All right, guys, I apologize. It's kind of dark out, but I just did my first pull, and this thing hit 14 pounds of boost. So the belt was definitely slipping before. Now we're at 14 pounds of boost, and it went a little lean, so I just added some fuel into the tune to see if we can make a pull safely. 14 pounds kind of sounds like a lot. As soon as we get some open road, I'll hit it again and see if this thing makes a full pass. Holy fuck! Yeah, baby! That's what I'm talking about! Yeah! It spun all 3rd gear! It was holding 14 pounds of boost. 14! Holy shit! It was a little lean still, so I gotta adjust the tune. Yeah, buddy! Alright, I'm gonna add some fuel into this thing. Have a factory map sensor, so it only reads up to 12 pounds of boost, or like 11, whatever. So I'm just taking the farthest column to the right, and I'm adding fuel there, which should compensate for, you know, the 14 pounds we're on right now. Alright, so I just added another 10% in to the whole thing. I'm so fucking happy right now. This thing is actually ripping. Like, I was impressed, which actually takes a lot. I'll try it again in 4th. B20Vtec, it's like 11s. We gotta hit some fucking dry concrete and try this thing out. This thing's fucking ripping, dude. Man! Dog pile, chicken smile. Try the tires off a little bit. Maybe we can get some traction. I'm gonna try 3rd gear. We're on concrete too. Here we go. Tapers down to 6. Alright guys, so I think I'm going to wrap the video up here. I feel like it's getting kind of long. So yeah, but anyways, I still have a little bit of an issue with the car where the boost is not being consistent. I haven't had any issues with the belts or anything like that, and I don't think the belt is slipping. But I do think that this little actuator right here, this little black thing, might be causing a lot of my issues because, as you can see, it is very loose, like it's ready to snap off. And I don't know if this leaks. I think it actually cuts boost off. So that could be my issue. Very well could be my issue. So I may take this off and JB weld it or something and see if I can find any leaks on it. And if I can, you know, fix it and then go again. But just working bugs out slowly but surely. And hopefully this thing will be perfect in a day or two. And we can move on to some other things. But hopefully you guys enjoy the video and you enjoy all this pain and suffering that's going on with this thing right now. Like I said, hopefully we can get some good pulls in soon. But yeah, for the time being, thank you for watching, and we will see you later.